You're watching Exit 1055 with your host, Richard Rose.
Hey, good morning. I'm Richard Rose. Welcome to Exit 1055 Long Island. This is your CBS affiliate TV 1055 show about all things Long Island. This morning, we look at what is now the global relief effort underway throughout our entire hemisphere, from Mexico to Texas to Florida into Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. The massive relief efforts are overlapping, stretching the resources of those who risk their lives to help those who've been stricken by these many disasters. In Mexico City, dozens of people are rescued in harrowing scenes of bravery as first responders staggered through collapsing debris to pull earthquake survivors through tons of broken concrete, metal, and dust. Yet, hundreds more killed by the massive earthquake that struck the capital city and the surrounding regions. Meanwhile, Hurricane Maria flattened Puerto Rico, knocking out power to the island completely, collapsing hundreds of structures. A death toll rising as rescuers must first clear the wreckage from the roadways, even to reach those inland near rain-swelled rivers. President Trump declared it a federal disaster, and military relief is on its way to the island that was clearly in the bullseye. And, of course, all of this on the heels of the twin hurricanes that pounded Texas and Florida, respectively. You remember Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, billions of dollars in damage with major infrastructure compromised throughout several communities. And in a season of seemingly unending disasters, here now are some of the people who are right there with so many other great first responders to lend a big helping hand and actually saving lives through their agency's critical resources. I want to welcome Neela Lockle and Craig Cooper from the Long Island Red Cross.
Thank you.
You guys have been busy.
We sure have.
Yeah. Do you think at this point that you're able to handle all these different disasters? Because, you know, just from talking to you for the last few moments, you're involved in each and every one of these. Are you stretched too thin?
So the really amazing thing about the American Red Cross is that we are a huge network. We have sent down about 6,000 volunteers to support these multiple disasters and relief efforts.
6,000?
Across the country. Wow. Here from the greater New York region, we've sent about 200 people, but just so you have some sense of our scale, we have over 6,000 registered volunteers with the American Red Cross here in the greater New York region.
Just in this area. Hey, Craig, I mentioned you went down to Florida, right?
I did.
So tell me, where were you? What did you see? When was that?
Well, I spent the duration of the storm in a safe building in Miami. It was horrible in Miami. As soon as the roads were cleared, though, my partner and I really wanted to get down into the Keys and see where we knew that there was going to be much more destruction. In a lot of ways,
you made it to the Keys.
We did. We made it all the way down to Key West.
What did you see there?
You know, it's interesting, Richard, because in a lot of ways, I think those of us that experienced Sandy firsthand here on Long Island. There were a lot of similarities. Key West is in a sense, a barrier island, very much like what we have on Long Island. A lot of the damage was a combination of wind and storm surge, as we saw along the South Shore during Sandy.
Well, you see how wrecked it is, and some people stayed, but most evacuated. Some were questioning when this didn't quite hit with perhaps the ferocity that was really feared, almost apocalyptic in what they were talking about. People saying, we didn't really need to evacuate. Did they need to evacuate?
Absolutely. You know, the forecasters got it pretty much right in terms of where it was going to hit, and certainly the Keys being a 70, 80-mile long stretch of islands, everybody knew it was going to hit someplace, and I think the good news, relatively speaking, is that Key West was somewhat spared, but the middle of the Keys were devastated, as bad, if not worse.
Well, I worked in Jacksonville in the 90s for several years for a television station. I was shocked by what I saw there, but, you know, they'd always talked about how the St. Johns River could back up if there was a strong storm surge.
Exactly.
They were caught off guards there.
It was amazing.
I think it's really important for people to remember that when your local officials are suggesting or recommending evacuation, it really is the safest thing to do, because people are watching and monitoring and really trying their best to assess where the most critical points of danger will be.
Well, you know, everybody is going, what is going on? We've had 8 major catastrophes in 4 weeks, 6 named hurricane or tropical force storm damage that have hit the entire hemisphere, and 2 earthquakes in Mexico City. That's 8 disasters in 4 weeks. What is going on? Are these hurricanes getting worse? People are wondering if they are.
You know, we are not meteorologists
right,
nor climate change experts, but what we can tell you is that as an organization, what we really do constantly is ongoing assessment and ongoing reassessment of our strategies and our plans, and ensuring that we are preparing for disasters. We're monitoring trends. We're in communication with partners.
And that's what I'm wondering, because, you know, I guess my question really is, because we don't really know the answer if they definitely are getting worse. They certainly were this year. Does it change the way you respond to these disasters if they are going to come more frequently and more ferociously?
I mean, part of the good news is that the Red Cross is part of a network of organizations that responds to these disasters. Even just one of these, just Harvey, just Irma, these are storms that are bigger than any one agency can really handle. And the good news was, as we saw in Texas after Harvey, the Mexican Red Cross came across the border and they were helping us a tremendous amount in and around the Houston area.
So what are you guys doing to help with Mexico City, or is that beyond your borders, or it's the international organization there?
As partner organizations or as sister organizations, we stand ready to help. We've been in communication with the Mexican Red Cross. We have committed as an organization to send $100,000 of aid over there.
That's wonderful.
And as they assess what their damage and needs are, they will let us know and get back to us.
Meanwhile, we still don't really have a clear sense of what happened in Puerto Rico. What are you hearing, and what are you doing to help the folks there? Because this is a U.S. territory.
Yeah, right. So we have about 150 Red Crossers down in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands right now. We're continuing our damage assessments. We are waiting for safety so that we can send our teams out to do these assessments. We are working with local officials and government partners to support them in their efforts to shelter and provide services to the communities.
What do you need? Everybody wants to help. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and there are people from virtually all of these areas that have been struck so hard living in the New York City area who want to help, who have family or friends there. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people in our region affected by this through those kind of connections.
Right.
Sure.
And, you know, what ends up happening after any disaster, Richard, is that people rush to their closets and their pantries and they want to try and find clothing and food to donate in some cases. Of course, in terms of the Red Cross, what helps us the most is financial donations. You can go to 1-800, you can dial 1-800-RED CROSS, go to redcross.org, or just text 90999 and put in Red Cross, and you'll make a $10 donation.
Well, I know the CBS network had a telethon, raised about $50 million. It's a significant amount of money, and people are still donating to that. How about the Red Cross? What have you guys raised so far from all of these calamities?
We are still in the process of assessing. Folks have been very generous and supportive, and the need is continuing to be assessed. And so we're not going to have final numbers for a while. But in the meantime, what we're doing is providing a lot of sheltering services to a lot of communities across Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We sheltered just last night over 16,000 people.
It's incredible what's happening. I mean, you still shake your head, and when we get up and do the news, I don't know if people, they think, oh, we love big breaking news. We'd rather we never had to tell any of these stories. What struck you most about the people down in Florida that you saw that now have to recover? What struck you about their spirit?
You know, it's funny. I think just about anywhere you go in the country, people will talk about their neighbors as resilient and tough-hearted people. Until you've met somebody from the Florida Keys who have a unique wiring, they really are.
Of their own.
And the ones who evacuated, who came to one of our evacuation centers in Miami, they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
All they wanted to do was get home. Of course, the folks that didn't evacuate, I think a lot of them regret it. But these are folks that certainly understand of helping each other, helping their neighbors. What we saw on the news out of Texas with people, you know, just running and helping their neighbors, it was amazing.
It is heartwarming to all of us. Can-do people, no question about that. And here are some of them right here who are lending a hand, a big helping hand with the Long Island Red Cross, Neil Alackel and Craig Cooper. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Rick.
And we're with you and all those folks struggling with this string of natural calamities affecting so many people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when we return, how the food banks now have come to serve a critical role in this disaster relief response, and how they managed to solve a logjam threatening to pile up the many donations.